walk you through my testimony really quick. So I was very legalistic. I did grow up in a charismatic home, but I was very legalistic. I took that on myself. It was how I interpreted things. It was some of the school that I went to, some of the church that I was exposed to, certain things that I would hear someone say, and I just interpreted it as very legalistic. I read the Bible like that. So don't ask me how this worked, but I was a 5-point Calvinist charismatic. I don't know how that's possible. Yes? How did what work? Oh, just well, there you go. So you caught me there. So I don't know how it worked. That's the problem. That's why I'm in. I got to the point I realized, why isn't this working? Well, it doesn't. So yes, it's very, very legalistic. You understand things with 5-point Calvinism are things like limited atonement. Only so many people can get saved, and God predestined them, and I don't know, all kinds of things. So I'm not talking about whether those are right or wrong. My point is just to mention those, regardless of what it is that we believe. Even if you are a 5-point Calvinist, it is very extreme. So regardless of whether or not it's the truth, it is extreme. So I was extreme in everything. But then I was also charismatic. I was baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was 7, and so I started speaking in tongues. And so I was saved when I was 4, baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was 7, baptized in water when I was 9. But my life was very joyless, very joyless. It was very pressed, and I didn't understand how I was supposed to. I didn't feel loved by God, and I didn't understand other people who liked being Christians. Now, I didn't tell anybody that, but that's what I was thinking. Also, I did not like Jesus. I really, really didn't like Jesus. God the Father was the one I would always focus on because he's the Father, and he makes all the rules. But Jesus was my perfect big brother that I was always being compared to against, and I could never match up. And that brought a lot of resentment. So that was where I came from. But of course, you would never know that. I was a perfect little church girl, and went to a very conservative Christian college. And finally, just backtracking just a little bit to let you know what was going on in my professional life, because that plays into it. So I'm 36 now. At the time that the Lord brought me into this threshold, I was 34. It was December 2018, and I was 34 years old. And I had been a turnaround business consultant with my best friend who's here. So her and her husband, I was turnaround consultants with them. They hired me, trained me, and the things that you have to go through in that industry, especially the type of people that we wanted to help, it's very extreme. So a turnaround business consultant takes on a company that is either about to go bankrupt and they're trying to save you and you're trying to save them in the 11th hour, because that's when they find you, is in the 11th hour. Or they've already settled for bankruptcy, and then they save turnaround consultants to grow them very radically so that they won't be like that again. Or you're taking a company that's local and couldn't break through the glass ceiling into national, and then you help them finally break through. Point in explaining that, it's extreme. It's beyond normal business consulting. It was fire. All day, every day. Everybody that you work with, all of your friends and colleagues, all of their lives and their families' livelihoods are on the line for decisions that you are making like that. And I burnt out. So I burnt out personally because of how I was living my life. I was just, everything was, I felt that I was constantly oppressed, that God at least needed something from me, that it was about my behavior, not about who it is that I was. It's all about what it is that I did and didn't do. And so I burned out, obviously, in that, spiritually as well. And then, as you can tell, I burned out professionally. And I burned out in all three of those areas multiple times in my life, because I'm one of those people that drives so hard, I literally will drive to death. Physical death, physically, and in my professional life, I will risk whatever is necessary to do what I think is right, not what necessarily is right, but whatever it is that I'm thinking must be right. I will run everything into the ground, sacrifice everything, relationships. The only thing that I would not risk was my relationship with the Lord. So finally, that was the last thing that that was the final thing I had to risk. So it was very, very extreme. So I was absolutely exhausted. December 2018, I had all of these dreams that I had built up for 34 years. And I just thought, if I just endure, if I had faith, if I just keep doing the right thing, what I thought was the right thing, then finally I would get my reward. So December 2018, I was hit with the realization, something happened, I was triggered, and I realized that people around me had been given all, not some, literally all of the dreams and all of the gifts that I'd ever asked God for. All of them. All of the people around me received all the dreams, and I didn't receive one. Not even one. Nothing. And I'd had it. And I had struggled with depression and PTSD when I was in college and then out of college for about 7 years. Anxiety, would hyperventilate, have terrible, terrible demonic nightmares. And I struggled with all of that for about 7 years. Finally, thankfully, the Lord healed me and saved me from all of that. But I'd been healed from that for quite a while by the time I hit 34. So when I hit 34 and I was triggered again, I went down to suicide level again because I'd been at suicide level back then. I went down to suicide level in hours. It was that fast. I went from not being depressed to suicidal in hours because my brain, my emotions knew that path. It was very, very familiar. So I remember standing in my bathroom, I think it was December 27th, 2018, and it was like I saw this open vision. I had been literally crying for almost 48 hours. My eyes were so swollen that they almost couldn't open. And I was plummeting fast. And it was like I saw this vision or something. It was like I could see myself, outside of myself, and I was spiraling down. And I was just feeling my soul just fall into the suicidal depression. And I thought, okay, Ashley, you've been there before. You've been in that pit. Now, yes, God is there. God is at the low, because I had been at what God told me was the lowest point that a human could get. He said, Ashley, I remember I was down on my knees. I was just exhausted. And God said, Ashley, when people lose spouses or children, this is where they go. He said, this is as low as a human being can go. And he said, he gave me a promise. He said, I promise you will never be here again. But you've got to get out of this, and you've got to choose me. So all that I chose was that he was real. I didn't even choose that he was good. I just chose he was real. And so that happened like 12 years ago or whatever. So by the time that I'm now in this place where I'm watching myself spiral down again, I'm thinking, okay, I've been there before, and I am not going back. Because I can hear God there, because God's everywhere. So I know he's in that deep, dark pit. But it's really hard for me to hear him down there and to have the courage to make the choice that I need to. I know that I'm going to, but good night, I don't want to go through that hell, right? Because that feels like hell right there. So what I did is I made a choice, an intentional decision, that power of intention. We'll be talking about that on Sunday. And I reached out with my hand, not literally with my hand, but it's like I could see in this vision that this hand went out from me, and I chose to grab myself up by the scruff of my neck and yank myself up. And internally, I felt my soul rise. I'm like, okay, all right, so that was a close one. So I was actually spiritually doing that to my soul. It's very, very interesting. That was a very interesting experience. I've never interacted with a vision before, but hey, when you're in that situation, you don't question it. All I knew is that I had made a choice, I'd made a very powerful choice to save myself. And so I then told the Lord, okay, God, all I know is that everything that I have done so far in life hasn't worked. Nothing has worked. I believed that your pleasure came through everyone's spiritual maturity. So your pleasure came through my spiritual maturity. The more spiritually mature I became, the more you were pleased with me. And my spiritual maturity came through pain. I thought that that's how we got spiritual maturity. The more pain you go through, the more spiritually mature you become, and the more pleased God is with you. So that meant that I saw pain, the higher the pain, the greater God's pleasure. Very twisted idea of who it is that God is. But because I believed that the higher the pain, the more God's pleasure, I embraced pain when it came to me. I didn't just deal with it. I embraced it and took it into me. I made it harder. And then if enough pain didn't come my way, I would seek it out and create it. Because I'm trying so very hard to please my God, so very hard to get close to him. So I told God, this is what I've been doing so far. And Lord, whenever I've made a decision, I would not move forward or backward unless I heard your voice. I wouldn't move forward or backward unless you told me so. And then, unless somebody came to me and I absolutely had to make a decision right then, and then the way I would make a decision is, okay, what is it that I want to do? Then I won't do that one. What is it that I don't want to do? This one. So this is the one I'm going to do. So I always did what I didn't want to do and would never allow myself to do what I wanted. This is who I thought God was. So this is who God has saved me from. So like I said, in that December, I told God, okay, none of that worked, but I don't know what does. So until you show me, I'm asking that you show me what really does work. But until you show that to me, I'm going to start doing the opposite of what I've done in life so far. I'm going to start living the opposite of what it is that I've lived. So I thought, okay, well, what would the opposite be? Because I'm not going to walk away from God because, I've chosen him. So what am I going to do? And then I thought, okay, my decisions. I'm now going to do whatever I want to do. If I want to do it, that's what I'm going to do. So I started making decisions, and that's when I found my God. And it was so weird. I still remember exactly where I was sitting, where my spirit or soul moved or something. I made a decision, God, this is what I'm going to do. And then it's like my soul moved, and it could breathe. And my spirit could breathe, and I thought, there's my God. Oh, my word, I've been looking for him for 34 years. Then about 6 months later, I heard the gospel for the first time in a very transformative way. Obviously, I was saved when I was 4, but I heard about it in such a way that when I interacted with the gospel in this way, when I interacted with Christ in this way, I finally felt that huge transformation that you hear about in other people's testimonies, where they were like drug addicts, and then they have this like moment of blinding light and whatever. I'm like, and then they just, and they immediately left their drugs. They had this epiphany. They had this ecstasy feeling. I thought, what must that be like? It's like everything turned into Technicolor in their lives. I thought, that must be wonderful. But I was 4, and I don't feel any different. In fact, I don't like being a Christian. So what is all that about? I discovered what that was about. So some people remember their salvation date. My salvation date was July 11th, 2019, because that is when I found my God. So I listened to the gospel from a man that I'll be teaching a lot of my stuff from, Chris Blackaby. A lot of you know him. And I had heard his message on YouTube. Didn't know a thing about him, just clicked on it, and he started talking about the gospel. And I told the Lord, I remember pausing it at one point, and I told God, I could just, I don't know, it's like my spirit could just sense him here. And so I talked to him and said, God, I'm about to go into that. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know if you created a relationship with you to look like that or not. All I know is that nothing else that I've done so far has worked, and that sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful and absolutely perfect if a relationship with you could look like that. So I am choosing, Lord. Before I wouldn't move forward or backward unless the Lord said. I didn't do that this time. I told the Lord, I'm going to go into it. After I go into it, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But and I'm not recommending that you talk to God like that. But we all have said things to the Lord in very desperate moments, and He's a big God. He can handle it. But I told him, I said, I wasn't disrespectful, but I was very serious. I'm going to go into that, and then if I'm wrong, Lord, you can correct me when I'm in it. So I jumped in with both feet. That's another thing that we're going to be talking a lot about this weekend. It has to be all chips in. That reckless abandon, none of this, I'm going to test this out. It won't work. I promise you it will not work. But I jumped 100% in, and I was like, oh my word, this is God. This is the God that other people talk about. This is the God that people die in coliseums and facing a lion for. I did not understand that until that time. So so before we even talk about rest, we'll be talking about the gospel. But it's in a very different way than some of you have ever heard. Some of you have heard Chris Blackaby, and then others who teach like him, who have understood that message from our Father. But for some of you, it might be very, very new, and it is completely, completely transforming. So then the Lord just has just walked me through a time where he was just teaching me what it is that I was, how to operate from this new place with this new understanding of my identity in Christ based on this new gospel that I now had. And then I had to take it into other areas of my life, including my business. Okay, now I was a turnaround business consultant, but I was feeling that the Lord wanted me to do something different. What is this thing in me that needs to come out? So over about a year and a half, and the reason I'm going into this detail is for those of you who are holding on to a frustrated dream of like business or something else, that you feel something's inside of you and it's frustrating that it's taking so long. Sometimes it just takes a long time. And my year and a half was, oh my word, that was so pressurized. It was very, very, very fast. Anyway, so about a year and a half it took me for the Lord to finally begin to articulate, Ashley, what I have been teaching you about for years is rest. So remember what I said, that when you go back to your foundation, how you now see all of your life through a different paradigm. God didn't obliterate everything it is that I had learned, everything it is that I experienced and accomplished, as if, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything. Let's start all over, because that was just trash. God's like, no. Now let's just see it through a totally different way. And so he then began to show me, Ashley, I've been teaching you about rest, but you were doing it out of strife. You were trying to get the results that you were getting in life. You need to stop trying, because it's who you are. And you need to stop and finally let it out. So that is very, very brief testimony of my 36 years with the Lord. But I'm very grateful to finally be in this place and to have received from the Lord the message of rest, because it's transformed my life. It is, like I said, it's the basis from which we do everything else. So after this, you can go to all these other conferences and learn all of these different things about how to experience God this way, or how to learn more about God in this way, or how to, be intimate with the Lord in this way. But you have to do it all from a place of rest, or none of it will work. Or it can't be sustained. You might get like glimpses of it, but it can't be sustained unless it's in rest.